Hello and welcome back to Safety for Cruisers. Today we're going to be talking about distress signals, the different types, how to use them, when to use them, etc. We're going to start out with our day signals, some sound signals, moving into night signals, and then we'll go into SARTs and a couple of other little goodies. So one of the less common types that you're going to be using for actual distress in terms of an abandoned ship situation is going to be a sound signal. So there's whistles, there's the compressed CO2 canisters, there's horns, there's all kinds of good stuff, but the reason I say it's a little bit less common to be using these in an abandoned ship situation is normally you're going to have some kind of electronic means for having search and rescue find you, and that's going to be followed up by a visual distress signal. It's not as common to need to blow a whistle to have somebody find your life raft. Normally they're going to have visual contact with you and they're going to be able to come straight to you. Now, still very important to have. We all have whistles on our PFDs. In our ditch bag we have a compressed gas horn, so super loud. That's very useful. They're also good for signaling in non-emergent situations, but not as common as they used to be, say, when flares and other signals weren't as prevalent in the maritime world. One old-fashioned signal that hasn't gone out of style, though, is the signal mirror. So this is going to be used as a reflective surface. There's a little sight glass on the back, and it can be used to attract ships, aircraft, whatever it is. The premise is that with enough sunlight, if you sight through the glass looking at your target and then move the mirror back and forth ever so slightly, you're going to generate a flash that's going to be, people say you can see it for all the way out to the horizon line, so as long as you're within visual, or all the way up to an aircraft, at 30,000+ feet. So it's a very effective means. They do obviously have to be looking in your general direction in order for it to work, but it's light, it's easy, it's simple, it's pretty bomb-proof, and it's a great thing to supplement your ditch bag with. Going into some other day signals, we have a dye marker. We've got a couple of these here. So we've got a few that have been added to our flare kit that stays on the boat, and then we have a few more in the ditch bag and a few more in the tender. So what these are basically chemicals. They're designed to be either fluorescent yellow, green, whatever color it is. And the idea is that if you have an aircraft coming overhead or a search and rescue vessel looking for you, we'll go into again when to use all these a little bit more later. You basically pop the cap on this, stick this guy in the water, and it's just going to sit there. The chemical is going to disperse out, and you're going to get this huge big stream of color emanating from this capsule. Depending on the capsule, they last for different lengths of time. As they disperse, the conditions will dictate that. Obviously, the larger it is, the more you're going to see it. So this is a great supplement. They don't usually come in the Coast Guard flare kits that most people get, but they're a great supplement to use. Another thing that doesn't always come in the flare kits, but is a good supplement to have as well, is going to be a day shape. So they look like this when they're unrolled. This is probably 6x10, so I didn't want to undo it, but this guy is basically going to be used for either laying out on the surface of the water. Is very similar to our rescue streamers that we covered in the personal rescue gear in our PFD. We have kind of a little portable one that rolls out, so this one's going to be good to lay on the surface. If, say, you're on an island and you put it out on the beach, overflying aircraft can see that. This is the international distress signal right here. So it's just basically a day shape, a visual distress signal, and nice because there's no technology behind it. Kind of foolproof. It can be used for other things, water collection, etc. So another good thing to supplement. This came with, and we'll finish off our day signals moving into night. This little guy happened to come with this electronic flare. So this is a great workaround for people that don't do much, say, offshore sailing. They need to be Coast Guard compliant. This flare will keep you Coast Guard compliant, and it's incredibly bright, but it's basically designed to comply with the Coast Guard's requirements for visual distress signals. But if you're going to be going outside of a bay, this is really just a good supplement to have. You do need to have the rest of the pyrotechnic kit that we're going to be going into now. Starting off most basic here, this is a Orion hand flare. So this is designed to be day or night. The reason it's the reason it's both is that during the day it will produce smoke that can be seen for the required distances, and at night it will produce obviously a light as well. It's a flare. That's its design purpose. So these are great. As you can see here, the handheld flare is going to be good 3 to 5 miles. That's in calm-ish weather. These are not very bright. They are definitely better than nothing, but they are very limited in their range. So this is something that is really good just for close inshore, more calm weather, or once you've attracted them with one of the flares we're going to go over down the line, then you can light this off at the very end, and they can find you via this little hand flare. Moving up, the next kind of step here, you can see on this, is the 12 gauge Meteor flare. So this one is fired out of this little launcher. If you've got a shotgun on board, then you can get a launcher to an adapter to launch these out of a regular shotgun, which is kind of cool. And these go up to an altitude of about 500 feet, and they burn for anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds, and they will get you seen up to 21 miles. I will put a caveat out there. They're not very bright. It's designed, I think it's 16,000 lumens. I'm trying to remember the exact specs. They get up there, they'll burn for a little bit, but they're pretty limited. So this is Coast Guard compliant, but it's actually not SOLAS compliant. And SOLAS is the international standard for vessels at sea. So definitely good to have. It's a good kind of intermediate option. They also have a 25 millimeter Meteor flares, but those are kind of moving into this guy here, which is the rocket flare. So this is SOLAS compliant, and that just means that it's held to a little bit of a higher standard. And this fella here, you can see over there, is going to be visible up to 50 miles, and it's going to have a much longer burn time. It's going to be much brighter, and so this is the flare and the standard that the international maritime community has decided to go with. So we've got a couple of these down below, got a few more in the ditch bag. Obviously the idea is that you bring everything from the cabin out to the ditch bag when you're deploying the raft. And the way these work is they actually are a rocket propelled flare that will go up to altitude, and once they pop off and ignite, then you're going to have a little parachute on the top that's going to slow that descent. So these can burn anywhere from 30 to 90 seconds, depending on the model, I believe it is. And these guys are much brighter. So you can see these in the day not so well, but at night this can illuminate an entire bay. They're really efficient, and that's why I recommend that anyone going offshore doesn't just get the Coast Guard compliant little flare kit that everybody has on their bayliners, but actually goes out and purchases some higher quality flares. Before we go into how these operate, we'll go into another important factor, which is all of the pyrotechnics expire. That was kind of the idea behind these electronic kits, is that they don't expire. You just change the batteries, so it saves you some money and you're Coast Guard compliant. But for actual safety, these do expire. They're going to have a shelf life. It'll say the expiration date on them. It's always good to check the expiration date before you buy it. So just when you're checking out, look at it and make sure that it hasn't already expired, or you don't have 6 months left on it, because sometimes they sit on the shelf for a while and don't get circulated through. So all of your pyrotechnics need to be up to date in order to be functional and safe. But it's a good note is that when they do expire, more often than not, they'll still probably work. So you don't need to dispose of them. You can migrate them to a secondary location. We touched on this in the last video. Instead of just getting rid of them, you can go ahead and put them in your dinghy. Put them in your life raft, put them in your ditch bag. Put them somewhere that if you do need to use them, better more than less, and you're going to have a surplus after a couple of years. Obviously, you're not going to need to keep every single one of them if you own a boat for 25 years, but for the first couple, maybe distribute that out and then keep kind of changing out your old inventory. So going into how all of these are used, just a very quick note, we're not going to go through individual models, just some basic safety considerations. These are all hand activated devices, whether you're dealing with a rocket, whether it's a contained charge that's going to launch it out of a launcher, or it's just sitting in your hand. These are all incredibly hot. They're obviously designed to emit a lot of light, and with that comes a decent amount of heat. And in addition to that, the hand flares in particular, since you're holding them the whole time, you need to make sure that they are burning. It's going to give you a line. It says do not hold above this line, because this is the actual part that's going to burn. When it burns, you're going to get little sparks, little things that drip, maybe, depends on the flare, depends on the material. You want to make sure you're holding this and you're launching all of these downwind, so downwind from your face, downwind from the raft, downwind from everything, so that you're not getting burning material on your friends, on the life raft, wherever you are. You want to be downwind and you want to be looking away. If you're using these at night, which is the primary purpose, obviously this is also day compliant, but if you're using this at night, then you're going to want to preserve your night vision. Keep steering away, wave it overhead, a little bit behind you. You want to keep yourself safe, you want to keep your night vision intact, and you want to keep whatever materials around you safe. Moving into another very good search and rescue device that we don't have here. This is going to be kind of a hybrid between the, we'll call them analog or manual signaling devices, and the digital ones that we talked about in the past, the EPIRBs, the PLBs, even the DSE radios and inReach, things like that. This is going to be a bit of a hybrid. This is called a SART, which is a search and rescue transponder. And this is a relatively new invention, more like the electronic mediums that we talked about before. And what this does is this actually interacts with the radar of passing ships. It has to be a certain type of radar, but as things develop, more and more are going to that. So what this will do is it is battery operated, so you have to turn it on. But if you were to turn this on and it interacted with the radar, it's going to show up on the display of the ship that sent that radar pulse out as a long series of lines coming from your location. So SARTs are only designed to be used in emergency situations. So if anyone is on the bridge of a ship and they see a SART, they're going to know that that's an emergency transmitter, and they're going to go and they're going to start a search and rescue and activate the appropriate authorities. So they're very small. They're that's almost to scale, actually. They're very reasonably priced, all things considered. So very good supplement to have. Haven't personally gotten one on board yet, which has been on my to-do list, but no one's perfect. So here we are. Now, really quick, we're going to talk about when to use all of these signals. And we're going to go in a little bit of a reverse order. So starting with the SART, a little bit tricky to know when to use the SART. They usually have about a 12-hour battery life. So you do want to conserve them. The thing about the SARTs is that they are visual in terms of they need to be line of sight. The radar has to have a direct line of sight to the SART transmitter. So you want to have that up nice and high. And the reason I say it's a bit tricky to know when to use those is there can be ships that are well beyond your visual range, even 10, 15 miles. If they don't have bright running lights at night, you're not going to be able to see them. So can be good. Maybe turn, if you're in a life raft at night, maybe turn it on for 30 minutes every couple of hours. But the premise behind most of these devices and everything except the SART here is kind of moving in the more concrete, is these are all visual distress signals. They have to be seen in order to be useful. So you don't just get in a raft and start firing off flares and hope that there's somebody that's going to see you. You wait until you can see a rescue ship. and you want to start with your long range and go to your short. So you would start with your big flares when they're just a little blip. You can barely see them. You want to get their attention with a nice big parachute flare. And as they hone in on that location, you can launch a couple of the meteors. And by the end, when you can see the people on the bridge, you can whip out a hand flare and start waving that around. You want to make sure you conserve the devices. Again, you're not just firing them off for the hell of it. And you want to make sure, because you want to make sure that you have them when you actually need them. Last thing we're going to talk about is disposal. It's going to vary a little bit by location, but you want to make sure that you're disposing of these in a safe manner, in a legal manner, and in an intelligent way. There's plenty of people that will light these off for 4th of July and do all kinds of ridiculous things. Not super cool, especially if you're on the water, because they are, again, distress signals, and now you're going to get everybody around you concerned. You're going to get the authorities concerned. In the States at least, most fire departments, the Coast Guard will accept old flares, and sometimes you can even look for a maritime school and donate them, because they will set up times. They've alerted the Coast Guard where it's appropriate to test these and to demonstrate them. Lots of good videos on that. So just make sure that when you are disposing of all of these, that it's in a responsible manner. And the last thing we're going to do before we let you guys go is talk about storage. These are all chemical, they're all pyrotechnic. You want to keep them in a dry, sealed container as much as possible. Yes, they're designed to work in the rain. If you drop one in the water, it's probably still going to work, but the more careful you are, the more likely they are to work. So when they're inside, make sure they're stored, if possible, airtight. You can keep them in a nice sealed container. If not, make sure that they're not sitting in the bottom of the bilge where they can get soaked and they're going to be inactive if you actually need them. So thanks for tuning in, and stick around for the next video.